You need to leave tomorrow. You're 18. We fulfilled our contract. Marcus Johnson stood in the kitchen of the house where he'd lived for 14 months, the longest he'd stayed anywhere since entering foster care at age 6, and tried to process what his foster father David Mitchell had just said. Tomorrow was June 15th, Marcus's 18th birthday, the day the state of Arizona would stop paying the Mitchells $673 per month to house him, the day he would legally age out of the foster system, the day he would become nobody's responsibility. But I start Stanford in September, Marcus said quietly. He was 17 years old and 364 days. Tall, 6 feet 2 inches, lean from years of never quite getting enough food, dark skin, short fade haircut. He maintained himself with clippers from Walmart, wearing his Lincoln High School basketball warm-up jacket, the only nice clothing he owned. It's only 3 months. Can I stay until then? I'll get a job. I'll pay rent. Marcus, we're not running a boarding house. David's wife Patricia interrupted from where she sat at the kitchen table reviewing paperwork. She was a real estate agent. Successful. Their own 2 children, biological, wanted, had graduated college years ago. They'd been fostering since they became empty nesters. We foster children. You're not a child anymore. You're an adult. The state stops paying tomorrow. Our contract ends. Marcus felt something crack inside his chest. Contract. They'd called him a contract. Where am I supposed to go? His voice stayed steady despite the panic rising. 12 years in foster care had taught him never to show weakness, never to cry, never to beg. They could take everything from you, but they couldn't take your dignity unless you gave it to them. That's not our responsibility, David said, not unkindly, just factually. You can try the youth shelter downtown. Or maybe one of your friends can take you in for a few months until college starts. Marcus had no friends. Not real ones. When you moved 6 times in 12 years, different homes, different schools, different neighborhoods, you learned not to get attached. You learned that friends disappeared when you couldn't afford to go to movies or buy lunch or explain why you lived in a stranger's house and called them Mr. and Mrs. instead of Mom and Dad. I have nowhere to go, Marcus said. The truth. Raw. Desperate. Please. 3 months. I'll sleep on the couch. I won't eat your food. I'll work full-time. Just please don't make me. Marcus, you're being dramatic, Patricia sighed. Plenty of kids age out of foster care. They figure it out. You're smart. Stanford, full scholarship, that's impressive. You'll be fine. Stanford, full scholarship. For years at one of the best universities in the world. Pre-med track. He wanted to be a doctor. Wanted to help people the way no one had helped him. Wanted to prove that foster kids could be more than statistics. More than the 20% who became homeless within a year of aging out. More than the 25% who were incarcerated by age 24. More than the 50% who were unemployed. But Stanford started September 15th. Today was June 14th, 93 days between him and salvation. 93 days he had to survive homeless because his foster parents' contract ended at midnight tonight. I'll pack my things, Marcus said quietly. He turned and walked upstairs to the bedroom he'd occupied for 14 months. The room would be empty tomorrow, ready for the next contract. Marcus Johnson had entered foster care on November 3, 2006, when he was 6 years old. His mother Angela had died from a heroin overdose. Found in a motel bathroom with a needle in her arm and Marcus sitting beside her body, silent, waiting for her to wake up. She'd been clean for 8 months. One relapse killed her. Marcus had no father listed on his birth certificate. No grandparents willing or able to take him. No aunts, uncles, cousins who'd claim him. He'd become a ward of the state of Arizona. Over 12 years, Marcus had lived in 6 different foster homes. Home 1, ages 6 to 7 the Johnsons. Older couple. Nice enough, but overwhelmed. Returned Marcus after 1 year. Too difficult to manage, because he had nightmares about finding his mother dead. Home 2. Ages 7 to 8 the Garcia family. For other foster kids. Crowded. Not enough food. Marcus learned to hide food in his room. Moved when the state discovered neglect. Home 3. Ages 8 to 10 the Williamson family. Foster fathers sexually abused 2 of the foster kids. Not Marcus. He'd learned to sleep with a chair against his door. Home shut down. Kids scattered. Home 4. Ages 10 to 13 the Chin family. Actually kind. Marcus thrived. Begged them to adopt him. They said they couldn't afford it. State paid monthly for foster, but adoption meant permanent financial responsibility. Sent him back when he turned 13 because teenagers are harder. Ages 13 to 16, the Rodriguez family. No relation to his teacher. Revolving door. 7 different foster kids came and went. Marcus was oldest. Expected to babysit younger ones. No privacy. No stability. Moved when he turned 16 because they specialized in younger children. Home 6. Ages 16 to 17.99, the Mitchells. Suburban home. His own room. Stability. School. He'd thought maybe this time, but no. Contract ending. Through all of it, Marcus had done something most foster kids didn't. He'd excelled academically. When other kids were acting out, understandably, Marcus was studying. When other kids were running away, Marcus was doing homework. When other kids were falling behind, Marcus was getting straight A's. Not because he was naturally brilliant. Because school was the only thing he could control. Foster homes changed. Schools changed. Friends disappeared. But if Marcus studied hard enough, if he got perfect grades, maybe someone would want him. Maybe someone would see his worth. At Lincoln High School, Marcus had a 4.0 GPA, 36 on the ACT. AP classes in chemistry, biology, calculus, English. Valedictorian, National Merit Scholar, and a full-ride scholarship to Stanford University starting fall 2018. He would be the first person in his family, if you could call scattered foster homes a family, to attend college. But tonight, 24 hours before his 18th birthday, Marcus Johnson was packing his belongings into 2 black garbage bags because his foster parents' contract was expiring. Marcus owned very little. Foster kids learned to travel light. He folded his clothes. 3 pairs of jeans, 5 t-shirts, 2 hoodies, basketball warm-up jacket, 1 button-down shirt for college visits, underwear, socks. Everything fit in 1 garbage bag. Second bag, school supplies, his laptop, provided by high school for remote learning during a snow day, never returned, technically stolen but he needed it. Textbooks, his acceptance letter from Stanford, printed and laminated, carried everywhere like a talisman. Birth certificate, social security card, immunization records, and 1 photo of his mother. The only photo he had, creased and faded, showing Angela at 23, holding infant Marcus, smiling before addiction destroyed her. That was it. 17 years, 11 months, and 364 days of life fit into 2 garbage bags. Marcus sat on the bed, his bed for 14 months, about to belong to someone else, and tried not to cry. He'd cried once in foster care, when he was 8, after the Garcia family forgot his birthday. The other kids had mocked him. He'd never cried again. But tonight, he wanted to. He'd done everything right. Perfect grades. Perfect behavior. No drugs. No drinking. No pregnancy scares. No crime. Everything they said foster kids should do to succeed. And his prize was homelessness at 18. His phone buzzed. Text from Ms. Rodriguez, his AP chemistry teacher. Marcus, do you have a minute to talk? Need to discuss your scholarship paperwork for Stanford. Can you stop by my classroom tomorrow after graduation rehearsal? Graduation. Tomorrow. Marcus would walk across that stage, shake hands with the principal, receive his diploma as valedictorian. And that night, he'd sleep in a youth shelter or on the street because the Mitchells' contract ended at midnight. He texted back, "Yes, ma'am. I'll be there." Elena Rodriguez was 38 years old, a first-generation Mexican-American, and had been teaching chemistry at Lincoln High School for 15 years. She'd become a teacher because her own high school chemistry teacher had seen potential in her, a teenage girl from a working-class immigrant family, and encouraged her to pursue STEM when everyone else assumed she'd end up a secretary or worse. Ms. Rodriguez had never married, never had children, lived alone in a small apartment, owned a 10-year-old Toyota Camry, spent her summers doing professional development, and loved teaching with an intensity most people reserved for religion. And Marcus Johnson was the student who reminded her why she'd become a teacher. She'd had Marcus in AP chemistry his junior and senior years. Watched him arrive early, stay late, ask questions that went beyond the curriculum. Watched him tutor other students for free when they struggled. Watched him work harder than any student she'd ever taught, despite arriving at school exhausted from who knows what foster home drama. She'd written his Stanford recommendation letter, had poured her heart into it. Marcus Johnson is the most remarkable student I've taught in 15 years. His resilience, intellect, and compassion would be extraordinary in any circumstance. In the context of his life, 12 years in foster care, 6 different homes, 0 family support. His achievements are nothing short of miraculous. Stanford had accepted him. Full scholarship, pre-med track, everything he dreamed of. But yesterday, the school counselor had pulled Ms. Rodriguez aside with devastating news. Marcus was aging out of foster care tomorrow. His foster parents were evicting him. He had nowhere to go. No support system. No housing. Just 3 months between graduation and Stanford, and he'd probably spend them homeless. Can't the school do something? Ms. Rodriguez had asked. He's 18 tomorrow. He's no longer a minor. No longer the district's responsibility. He'll have to figure it out. Figure it out. An 18-year-old who'd survived 12 years of foster care, earned a Stanford scholarship, and was about to be homeless because the system abandoned him the second he turned legal adult. That night, Ms. Rodriguez had made calls. Foster care agencies, emergency youth housing, nonprofits. Everyone had the same answer. Services end at 18. Maybe a youth shelter, but those were overcrowded, dangerous, and temporary. Marcus would have to figure it out. And Ms. Rodriguez decided, not this time. Not this kid. She'd applied for emergency foster certification. In Arizona, adults could become foster parents through accelerated approval if they had background checks, training, and suitable housing. Ms. Rodriguez qualified. She'd been fingerprinted, background checked, interviewed, home inspected. Emergency certification had been approved. Effective June 15, 2018, Elena Rodriguez was authorized to foster one minor or recently aged-out youth in transition, special provision. Marcus didn't know yet. She'd tell him tomorrow after graduation rehearsal. She'd become his foster parent for the 3 months until Stanford. Give him housing, stability. And when he left for college, she'd remain, not legally required, but emotionally committed, his family. The family he'd never had. Marcus turned 18 at 12:01 a.m. He'd spent his birthday eve packing garbage bags and sleeping in the Mitchell house one last time. David and Patricia hadn't even said goodnight. At 6:30 a.m., Marcus carried his 2 garbage bags downstairs. Patricia was making coffee. David was reading the newspaper. Neither acknowledged him. I'm leaving now, Marcus said. Okay, Patricia said without looking up. Good luck at Stanford. That was it. 14 months. Gone. Contract fulfilled. Marcus walked to the bus stop with his garbage bags, rode 40 minutes to Lincoln High School, and stored his belongings in his locker. Tonight, after graduation, he'd take them to the youth shelter downtown. Hope they had space. Hope he'd be safe. At 2 p.m., graduation rehearsal began. The senior class, 347 students, practiced walking across the stage. Marcus, as valedictorian, would give the commencement speech. He'd written it weeks ago, optimistic then about the future. Now it felt like a lie. After rehearsal, while other students celebrated with families, Marcus walked to Ms. Rodriguez's classroom as requested. She was sitting at her desk, waiting. When she saw him, she stood. Marcus, close the door and sit down. We need to talk. I heard about your foster placement, Ms. Rodriguez said gently. I heard the Mitchells asked you to leave. Marcus's jaw tightened. How did she know? Had the school counselor told her? I'm handling it, Ms. Rodriguez. I'll figure something out. Where are you planning to stay? Youth shelter. I called. They have space. For how long? 30 days maximum. Then I don't know. Find somewhere else. Ms. Rodriguez leaned forward. Marcus, you're the smartest student I've ever taught. You are in Stanford. Full scholarship. Pre-med. You're going to be a doctor. You deserve better than sleeping in shelters for 3 months before you leave. I don't have a choice. Yes, you do. She pulled papers from her desk drawer. I applied for emergency foster certification. It was approved yesterday. Effective today, your 18th birthday. Arizona allows foster care for transition-age youth until age 21 in special circumstances. College-bound students qualify. Marcus stared at her. What are you saying? I'm saying I want to be your foster parent. For the next 3 months until you leave for Stanford. You'll live in my apartment. Your own room. Meals. Stability. No cost. Just let me help you. Marcus couldn't speak. His throat had closed. This teacher, this woman who barely knew him outside chemistry class, wanted to foster him? Why? He finally whispered. Why would you do that? Because you deserve it. Because you've survived 12 years of a broken system that should have protected you and didn't. Because you earned Stanford on your own with no help. and I'll be damned if I let you spend the summer homeless." She paused. "And because someone did this for me once. My college chemistry professor let me live with her family for 2 summers when my family couldn't afford to keep me home from campus jobs. She didn't have to, but she saw potential, and she helped. Now I'm paying it forward." "I can't pay rent," Marcus said. "I don't have money. I can get a job, but I don't want rent. I want you safe. I want you to graduate tomorrow, celebrate, spend summer preparing for Stanford. And when you leave in September, I want you to come back for Thanksgiving, Christmas, spring break. Not because you have to, but because you have someone who wants you home." Marcus broke. For the first time since he was 8 years old, he cried, sobbed. 12 years of abandonment, of being unwanted, of aging out, of garbage bags and contracts. It poured out. Ms. Rodriguez stood, walked around the desk, and hugged him. Held him while he cried. Said nothing. Just held him until the storm passed. "Okay," Marcus whispered finally. "Thank you. Thank you." "You're welcome, mijo," she said softly. In Spanish, mijo meant my son. "Now let's go get your belongings from your locker. You're coming home." 3 months later, September 2018. Marcus Johnson stood in front of Stanford University's main gates, wearing new clothes Ms. Rodriguez had insisted on buying. Jeans that fit, Stanford t-shirt, clean sneakers, backpack full of supplies, and he could barely breathe. He'd done it. Survived. Made it. Ms. Rodriguez stood beside him, car packed with his belongings. No more garbage bags. She'd bought him actual suitcases, ready to drive back to Phoenix. The summer had been peaceful. For the first time in 12 years, Marcus had lived somewhere with stability, kindness, someone who asked, "How was your day?" and meant it. Ms. Rodriguez had taught him to cook. They'd watched movies. She'd proofread his Stanford orientation essays. They'd argued about chemistry versus biology. She favored chemistry. He favored biology for pre-med. She'd given him something he'd never had, a home. "You're going to do amazing things here," Ms. Rodriguez said, hugging him at the Stanford gates. "And when Thanksgiving comes, you're coming back to Phoenix. I'm making turkey, and you're eating it." "You hate cooking turkey," Marcus laughed, remembering her complaints during their practice Thanksgiving dinner in August. "I do, but you're worth it." She held his shoulders, looked him in the eyes. "Marcus, you need to hear this. You are not a foster kid anymore. You are not a contract. You are not someone's burden. You are my family. Even when you're here, even when you're busy with school, even when years pass, you're my family. Forever. Understand?" Marcus nodded, crying again, not ashamed anymore. "I understand." "Good. Now go be brilliant. Call me every week." "And Marcus, I'm proud of you." 4 years later, May 2022, Marcus Johnson graduated from Stanford University with a degree in molecular biology. He'd been accepted to 7 medical schools. He chose UCSF, University of California, San Francisco, one of the top medical schools in the world. Ms. Rodriguez flew out for his graduation. Sat in the audience crying when Marcus crossed the stage. They'd stayed close. Weekly phone calls, holiday visits, summer weeks where Marcus came back to Phoenix and stayed in the room that was permanently his. At graduation, Marcus gave a speech to his pre-med cohort. 12 years ago, I entered foster care. 6 homes, 0 adoptions. At 17 years and 364 days old, I was told I'd aged out and needed to leave. I had nowhere to go. And then my high school chemistry teacher became my foster parent. Gave me a home. Not because she had to, because she saw someone worth saving. Ms. Rodriguez taught me that family isn't DNA or paperwork. It's who shows up when the system walks away. She showed up for me. And now I'm becoming a doctor, so I can show up for others the way she showed up for me. To all the foster kids out there, aging out isn't the end. It's just the system giving up on you. But people won't. Find your Ms. Rodriguez. Be someone's Ms. Rodriguez. We save each other. In the audience, Elena Rodriguez sobbed. Not sad tears. Proud tears. Because the scared 17-year-old with 2 garbage bags had become a Stanford graduate heading to UCSF medical school. Marcus Johnson's story proved what happens when one person refuses to accept systemic failure. On June 14, 2018, Marcus was 24 hours from homelessness despite earning a Stanford scholarship. The foster care system had given up on him, but Ms. Rodriguez hadn't. But most foster kids don't have a Ms. Rodriguez. 20,000 kids aged out in 2018. Most became statistics. 20% homeless, 25% incarcerated, 50% unemployed. Not because they were failures, because the system failed them. Aging out at 18 isn't adulthood, it's abandonment. Marcus survived because Ms. Rodriguez gave him 3 months of stability. 3 months that changed everything. Like, subscribe, and share if you believe no child should age out into homelessness. Join the conversation. Do you know a foster youth, or were you one yourself? What does the system need to change? Share below. Remember, in 2018, Marcus had 2 garbage bags and nowhere to go despite perfect grades. By 2022, he was a graduate of Stanford University. That's what happens when someone sees potential instead of paperwork. Support foster care reform. Support transition age housing. Support children maturing after 18.